Hey people, it's me, Ken. Do you know who I am? Yeah, life passed you by, but we just fixed that now, didn't we? Hey, I am here with a big body, thick, single cutaway, single pickup, Archtop guitar body from Guitar Kit World. You've seen my work before. If you haven't, I'll give you a list of some of the stuff up there. This one, when I got it, I had the idea. I don't build phony copies or people like, that's not a real guitar. The guitars I build are like, oh, that's the only one like it. So anyway, when I got this one right here, listen, I don't want union complaints from this Chick Flik Teal pointer. When I got this guitar and I opened it up, I forgot to film this before I went to work, so now I'm having to do it after I started. But I am looking at something here. Those of you that are loyal viewers, which you will be now because you're going to be hooked on this anyway. You know I like Chick Flik Teal. Hashtag Chick Flik Teal. In fact, I like it so much, I'm at the therapy needed level of like Chick Flik Teal. And this guitar is going to be called the CFT Special. Let's get to the bench. I want to show you how to fix the body up, how to get the neck on, and then we're going to junk pile this thing up, remember. Okay, reamer. When you're using a reamer, you want to make sure that you go backwards, turn counterclockwise after you go in, because what you're doing is you're setting a spiral pattern in place. It's kind of like threads. So if you don't go backwards and seal it off, it will have that edge and it will kind of want to keep going, if that makes any sense to you. So always turn backwards with some pressure, and you can tell that you're doing that because it will bring up whatever's on the reamer to the top, and then you can just brush that off. Now, again, 800 grit sandpaper. What we're looking for is if you see anything that's sticking up in this process, you want to keep hitting it with naphtha, because if you don't, there is going to be a problem. You'll have that spot, that orange peels that never goes away. Now, my guitars aren't known for a wonderful finish, but I still don't like that. So I'm just going to go along with the pattern. There we go. Lintless rag. If you are dropping paper towel fibers on top of your guitar as you are getting to this part, that is a problem. And then of course, one more time with the naphtha, especially around the edges. Notice I'm doing everything I can to keep my fingerprints off the guitar now. Oils, glue, solvent. Yeah, this is coming up clean now. It always was. A little bit right there. Perfect. Look. I like breakfast all day. It's afternoon, but let's have some breakfast. You know what this is? Yeah. You know why I'm putting this down here like this? Oh, look at that. It's a raw egg. Now, I'm going to get the yolk out of it. Okay? We're going to not have the yolk there, but we're going to have egg white. See that? Okay. We're going to put this part somewhere else. Okay? And I am left with egg white. Now, if you have an opinion about this, find somebody that wants to hear it. Are you going to believe what I'm going to do right now? Well, it's worked for me before. I'm not going to use potassium silicate to bind mud or dirt or clay particles like they did in Cremona, Italy. But I am actually going to put egg white all over the top of this guitar. Yeah. All right, here we are. The egg whites have dried. There's always going to be a little bit of residue and whatever it is up on top. I want you to pay attention now that I am not going to touch this until we get a coat on. And we're just going over to make sure that the application of the egg white didn't do anything to leave us high points. It is soaked into the wood and it has given us a base layer and kind of created a transition zone where the wood can still be soft, but it hardens up gradually to the finish. Why did we call this the CTF Special? Well, maybe because the top of it is going to be Chick Flik Teal. This application brush is awesome because you can pretty much set the limits of what you want to do. And this is why I taped off the binding. Now this binding, if it sticks up a little bit, I can scrape it just a little bit. But we'll get a coat on here and then we'll start going like this with the grain. And it will take a couple coats. The sides and back are going to be a different color. Like I said, this foam brush is awesome for doing this. This is stain, this is not paint. All right, sanding preceded by naphtha, followed by sanding, then naphtha again, and then we got egg whites. I try not to froth it up too much because that's what turns into a little bit of knockdown after the egg white goes on and you're ready for your stain. Again, anything that looks funny, anything that's not looking uniform, check it out before it's too late. We're going to let all this dry overnight, and I'm going to tent it with a piece of clean cloth so we don't get all dusty. Okay, while we have everything out, we are going to do the same thing with the neck. We want to be really careful on the front of the neck or the headstock up here, because this is where I've historically had problems. We're going to get another coat of naphtha on here after we do a little sanding. But this area right here, they put a little bit of grease or something in there, or lubricant, and then when it gets shipped all over the place, it gets hot and cold. And I think when it gets hot, you're going to see that you might see a couple of spots right where this is. Not all kits, but some of them. So we want to make sure that that gets some attention. Some of you don't cover your stuff up with coffee can scraps or whatever it is, but yeah, that is a place that everyone will notice. Now, I'm not going to do the inside pocket. You can tell where everything goes to everything is exposed to the outside. I mean, this part pretty much gets covered. Of course, all of this does. That gets covered. This stuff is pretty well sanded to begin with. So again, we've got 800 grit, and I didn't feel anything hanging up on the paper towel. I don't need to do a bunch of this and start getting flat spots going on the neck, but you'll find that the quality of these out of the chute is fine. There we go. Now I'm going to start paying attention to where I put my fingers. The naphtha rag is doing its job, and you'll find that this part of it's pretty easy because they send you stuff that fits together. I've never had anything that didn't need a little bit of work on the neck, but I've never been sent anything on the neck pocket that needed a lot of work. And that means that your neck angle is pretty good right out of the chute, and that is what's important with these Archtops. All right, here we go. The reveal on the side color. Yeah, this masking, you can get tape that's a little bit smaller, or you can just cut it down by running a razor blade around the roll of masking tape. But do whatever you can. I would like it if the binding was just a little bit taller and wider than what it needs to be, and that way I could just slop the paint on and scrape binding later, and then the paint would come off, or the stain would come off as part of that process. But I think what you really have to ask yourself in your creative world is, maybe there's a happy little tree right in this area here. Now you're going to find that all that work that you did with the naphtha at the beginning to get any fingerprints or oil or solvent off of the body is going to pay off now. And remember, we sealed it with egg white, so everything's good. All right, there we go. Back and sides, 2 coats. When you're applying the stain, look and see if there's something starting to puddle, or look like spotting that's kind of boiling, something like that. you can go back and fix that once everything is dry, and you're just going to have to go in, naphtha, sandpaper, get it down to the wood, and do that. The good thing about my guitars, they don't look like they have $1 million finish. It looks like the spray paint went on sale at Ace Hardware in Acton, California, cultural capital of the world. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this antique and glaze, and we're going to wish that we'd have cleaned the top off just a little better. And I shook it, and that means there will be some in the lid there. That's what we need. So I'm going to put that aside, and we're going to take this sponge here. These are pretty handy. And we're just going to wipe this on here real quick. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? It's like, don't worry about it. We're going to get a little coat of this on here. And we're going to give it a few minutes to sit on there. And then we're just going to wipe it off. And what it's going to do is it's going to pick up some of the rough spots and the scratches that I haven't been too careful with. Like so. And then we're just going to wipe this off. Okay, you always want to remember, if you feel you're making a mistake or something, stuff is water soluble, get some paper towel, get it off, and then you can always remember you can use naphtha if worse comes to worse and start over. It's not like this is a nice guitar, right? Well, we're just going to take this, and we're going to go along, and we're going to get whatever comes off easily off the top here. See that? And this is like years of bar grime and smoke and, you know, the kind of things that guitars pick up in dive bars and juke joints. Okay? There we go. We can't have this looking like super clean. Jelly bean. Bingo. Okay, let's have a talk about this license plate real quick. I told a story right up there right about now, but I had a search going on for Chick Flik Teal stuff that would match this guitar. I started to give up after a month or so because even on a national eBay search, local teal antique signs, motor, automobile related stuff, nothing was coming up. So I did a search one morning and found one license plate made in 1953 in North Dakota. Okay, my son's in North Dakota. I told him when he was young, don't work the oil fields. So he calls me one day, I'm in Williston. What's in Williston? Subarctic temperatures, flat, and drilling rigs, right? So he's happy up there, but whatever. So the teal license plate, the one that I could find, North Dakota, 1953. So I ordered, I get it. I'm looking at it saying, is this the right tint? Is everything okay? And I hold it up the other morning and I look at it and I finally look at the numbers. Tammy was born on May 5th, 2006, 5506. Yeah, this is the one. All right, guys, let's catch up. We've got some layout to do here, and I want to tell you that you can never depend on everything to be perfect and make assumptions. Like you will see on some Archtops that, especially carved tops, you will see that there's a line running where everything has been book-ended together. You might see a line down here where the strap button is supposed to be and all that kind of stuff. And so let's get some of the details out of the way here that I want you not to forget about. The first thing is we're going to want to know where the floating bridge goes. Now the floating bridge can be something like this where it's wood all the way through. It could be a wooden base and a tune-o-matic top, as long as those fit there and line up. There's a number of configurations, but you want to know where this is going to be, because there's a couple of measurements that are really important. So what we do is we take a ruler. This one was on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. I don't know that there are many shops out there anymore that have rulers like this. But I put a piece of tape here. Let me get Chick Flik Teal pointer back out. So I can mark, when I lay this at the end of the fingerboard at the back of the nut, I can make a mark on this piece of tape, and then I'm going to double that mark, or take the same distance from the center of the 12th fret, and that will tell me where this is going to need to be. And you'll hear a fallacy sometimes that the bridge is going to go right at these peaks of this F hole, and that's not always the case. So for example, I'm going to take this and put it at the back of the bridge, and I am going to put a mark right there, which I already have. Now I'm going to slide this down center of the 12th fret, and I've got a couple pieces of tape here. I'm going to put one over here, and I'm going to put one over here, and then I can tell where this bridge is going to go, and I can put a little dot right there. Let me reach across and take my Sharpie, and I can just put a dot right there and one right there, and that's where that floating bridge will go. Now, before I start putting all kinds of things together, I have glued the top on, or the neck, to the body, and I'm going to take a straight edge. It's got to be straight, and I am going to look at, is at the top of the arch here, is this bridge going to be too high, too low, or what? And so what I've got here is I am going to need to take off about that much by sanding off the base of this, or I could, where's my pointer? You'll notice that this floating bridge does not have the drop down for the thumb wheel like this one does, and so I'm basically going to have to sand this to the top. We don't want any gaps. There's barely any there now, and of course it's going to line up there. If it were back here further, wherever it goes makes a difference. Okay? Now let's put that off to the side, and I want to get a steel ruler now, a steel measuring device like this. A steel measuring device that's heavy is going to be great for setting up your height of your floating bridge. Okay, so I'm missing a couple of tools here. Here's one that I'm looking for. I want you to notice that the fingerboard is narrower up here than here. And so if I lay this up against here, now there's tape on there that is protecting the binding and everything, but if we lay that there, you'll notice that this is flexible, which is handy. I'm following the fingerboard down to here, and I'm making a line. See that? Now I'm going to come over here and do the exact same thing, and I'm just going to make sure that this is up against there, and I'm going to make a mark there. You see that? Mark there, mark there. Alright, so now that we've got those marks there, we've measured to the middle, which was easy with our metric ruler. Now we've come up here to this hole up here, measured from this corner to this corner, and found the middle and marked that. So we have 2 marks there. Now, you'll notice that these marks all also come down on to the side, or ribs, if you want to use the right term. And so when we go to look at our floating trapeze tailpiece, we've got a hole right there in the middle, and we've got a big one here that our strap button goes onto. So pay attention to this. If you put this here like this and you're not paying attention, and this drops down here like this, you'll have a gap right here, and you don't want that. So this actually sits up here. So what you're going to do is you're going to look through this big hole right here, and you can tell that the middle is right there and right there. So you mark those like so, and then the graphite will show up here, and if everything's gone right, that mark that you made from the middle up here to the middle up here will put your tailpiece in the right spot. If it's not in the right spot, what ends up happening is your string slots might be off to the side, and then everything won't line up here. And that becomes really important when you're going to put in your pickup, which is here. So now you want to remember that this is arched, and so you can take your surround for your pickup and take it to the belt sander at the bottom of the belt sander and put a slight curve in there. And so when you put your pickup in and go to tighten it down, you can see that it's sticking up a little bit here and here. So when I squat this down, rather than depending on the elasticity of the plastic, some of these come already with a curve on it. Watch this. You take your pencil and you just follow along the radius of the top, and that's going to give you a little bit right there to round off, and it'll be fine. So you'll put this in here, and if everything is good, the poles of your pickup here will be lined up with the middle here, and everything is going to come together. Now, a couple things going on here. I do not like this setup where this tone control or volume control, whichever way you want to put it, is way over here. So I am going to want to end up with my potentiometers and tone controls over here. I am going to put a pin and jack over here, and I'm going to reinforce it with some kind of metal that will be left over from this, which is going to become our pick guard. I've already taped it off so I can trace the pick guard pattern, and I will point out again, this is 5506, so that'll be up here somewhere. I'm going to cut out everything where this will fit under the surround in one spot, but where it doesn't have a clash with everything, it'll be up here like this. This is going to leave me pieces that I can reinforce. Now, when I'm laying out the placement of where our potentiometers are going to be, I want to make sure that I'm not going to be in conflict with my pin end jack that's going to come in from right here. I do not like pin end jacks so much being down here. I like them to be up here where they're off the side pointed down, and I really like them reinforced because sometimes people will drop things and it'll drive that through. And this old license plate right here is going to be very resilient. Now that leaves me a hole there was a mesquite tree out, there is a mesquite tree out in front of the house, and when it was putting off its seed pods, Tam would collect those. So I'm going to drill a plug out of a branch that I cut off that tree that I let dry out, and we're going to shine that up and sand it, and then it will fit right in that hole there with a plug. And so there will be a piece of, literally a piece of something that Tammy had a lot to do with. There was, or is, a binding here on the top, and I took the time to mask everything off. Now, I can take a tool and scrape the binding, which I will do, but you'll see that as this has been on here for a while, so that's why it's being a little bit difficult. But that is going to give us a nice contrast there, and there is a strip of it up on the top here, right here, that has some purfling as well, and we'll get that off there. But you're going to find out that this white is really going to complement everything up on the tail piece, or the headstock, I mean. So it's all going to fit together. This plate is not exactly teal, but I think you understand how important it is. And then also a nice part about this kit is that the F-holes are bound as well. But I can take a piece of razor blade that's got some tape on it. You see that? This tape will keep it up off the top of the guitar. So if I want to come along like this, you see this? I can come along like this until that binding starts to show. See that? And I'll just keep pulling this down until the white part of the binding shows. And again, it's got purfling in it. Okay? Know that when it comes time for me to pull in the potentiometers, I just take a piece of dental floss, like so, and then I just make a choker like you would have around a crane. You do a loop like this, and then you just tie a knot in it and pull it down where there is enough of an open circle like this to take both fingers, wrap it around like this, and pull it through, and that gives you this loop. Then once your nuts and everything and your star washers, I love star washers because they end up keeping everything from spinning, you just drop that down in here. You'll find out that it's better to put it up here than it is way down here, because the more it's down here, the more it'll try to tilt on you. But then you can just take your dental floss and feed it through the hole, and then when you drop it down like so, then you fish it out with a piece of coat hanger. That's pretty standard operation. Wherever your holes are going to be, whether it's for the new spot we're going to need here, from here to here, and then we just pop this and get a pilot hole started so our bit doesn't spin around. And then of course I like to use step bits and that kind of thing to get a nice clean hole here. Do not go around and push down really hard and blow everything out, and then you can use a reamer that goes in and spins it around. If you do use a reamer, turn it clockwise and then turn it counterclockwise a few times so the wood seals itself off. It's kind of stopping the wood from wanting to thread itself later in the future. Again, just take your stuff, put it where it needs to be, pop that in the center, pop it, and then you've got everything ready to drill, pre-drill it. I am ultimately going to seal this off with what's called a French polish. So this is dirty, okay? See that? We're going to pull this back to where it's kind of near the middle. A French polish is an old furniture finishing technique, and what you're doing is you're using a lac pad of finish, and you are putting it in there's cotton inside here, then a wool sock, and then a very fine high count linen here, and it's charged up with lac finish. See that? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this up like so, and I'm going to flatten it out. Now if it gets a crease in it, you'll be able to hear it, but what's going to end up being the finish on this guitar, and once I get all of the holes drilled and everything, this is going to be a good time for this before I mount all the hardware. But all this dirt and everything that I've made this look old, I'm just going to go over it like this. I've done episodes about lac pad French polishes on old guitar or yard sale archtops. There's be a playlist up there or something that you can refer to. But you basically come sweeping on and sweeping off. You don't just plop on, because believe it or not, the pattern of the linen will show up. But you're just basically going to come on like this, and you're going to go around and around. What comes around goes around. I'll tell you why. You know that those guys are still out there touring? So anyway, you're just going to keep going around and around, and I'm coming up to the middle here. But you're going to feel this start to pull back on itself because it's a spirit varnish. And you're going to just keep doing layer after layer after layer. And you will end up putting basically a glass-like surface over this, and it will be very shiny, and it will be a great finish. And it makes something that looks very old and beat up. It gives it a really cool look, and like I said, you'll feel this pulling back on itself. You've got to keep moving, and you'll just remember that the concave parts out here are where you need to pay attention, because it's your natural tendency to come over the high part of the arch. So anyway, you can do this 3 or 4 times a day. It vapors off pretty quickly, but after you get a few layers on this, it will start to develop that shine. See that versus that, yeah. So I have some stuff to put together here. Catch up with you in a bit. Okay guys, this is a single pickup model. That's what we're using. We have a volume pot, a tone pot. It's got a capacitor there. We're using a pin end jack. It's going to be reinforced with this other 5. It'll be put over here where it's not going to interfere with anything. We have to remember that there's got to be a ground wire running from the trapeze to the rest of it, or you will have string buzz. I'm going to hold this up for a minute, screenshot it. It tells you what everything needs to do. Okay guys, the Chick Flik Teal Special is DUN, done. And it even makes a little noise. Now, real quickly, it's got the owl, it's got the tuners, it's got the brush of Chick Flik Teal, it's got a big, thick body. It's got a license plate that says 5506, which was Tam's birthday. It's got a piece of wood from the tree that she collected all of her mesquite pods. And what we need right now is we're going to take it to a guitar tech at Guitar 48 in Ventura, and his name is Justice. And you want to remember that the difference between a good guitar and a decent guitar or a great guitar, other than the enemy of good is better, is that there's a lot of different planes and neck and this tilting and this tilting, and you get a lot of that taken care of out of the way you do your build. So, you know, if you glue the neck on right and you get all the angles right, but here and here and everywhere in between, you've got this balance between this and a little bit of bowl here, and the nut being filed to match the radius, and the bridge, the floating bridge, even the notches where the strings go, the size of the strings, and adjusting the truss rod. There's a lot there, and you can do that. But the moral of the story is, if you can find a guitar tech that can do a setup and then play their own setup, and you can see that happen, that's going to save you a lot of time, and you can move on to your next project. So let's join Justice at Guitar 48 and see a little bit of setup going on, and then let's hear what this thing will do.
Just kind of visually setting the intonation right now. We'll go back and do a proper check of it once we're getting closer on the guitar, but just getting it visually halfway there. So we're gonna bring everything up and at least get the action dial, because that truss is where I want it. Arguably dead straight. We'll see if I can take a little off of it. Let's get that bridge up in the air. We're going to set it too high because it's easier to lower it when it's too high than it is to raise it when it's too low. It's under string tension. Myself a little extra room. Yeah, let's get that feedback going. It's ridiculous.
It's killer.
It's what he just built.
You're kidding me.
No.
That doesn't look like it should sound that way.
It doesn't. It's him.